Hey guys, this video is just here for you to check your work after you've completed the classwork, so feel free to pause, fast forward, and just skip through what you need to know, and here we go. Question 4 says find the range, the median, the lower quartile, upper quartile, and the interquartile range of each set of the data and identify any outliers. So, first, you want to make sure that the numbers are written in order from lowest to highest, which luckily they are. And then you're going to want to start by finding the middle number. And because this list of numbers, there are an even amount, you are going to have two middle numbers that you're going to circle, and those numbers are going to be 69 and 73. And then you have to figure out the middle number between 69 and 73, and you can do that by either using logic, or you can find the average between those two numbers by adding them up and dividing by 2. And as a result, you should get quartile 1 is, or quartile 2 rather, is 71. And that is also known as your median. So your middle number is 71. Now you're going to put brackets around the numbers that are to the left of Q2 and numbers that are to the right of Q2, and you're going to repeat the process to find your first and your third quartile. So we'll start with Q1. In this list of numbers, there should be 7 numbers listed, and since 7 is odd, there's only one number that you are going to circle in the middle, and that number should be 62. So 62 is going to be your Q1. And now you're going to repeat the process to find your third quartile, and again there should be 7 numbers in this list, and so the middle number here should be 77 because there are 3 to the left, 3 to the right. So 77 is going to be your third quartile. Okay, now for the range. Range is always the largest number in your list, also known as the upper extreme, subtracting the lowest number in your list, also known as the lower extreme. So to figure out the range, you are going to take 85 and subtract 25, and you should get your range is 60. Now the interquartile range, IQR, is the same concept as range, but now you are only focusing on the quartiles. So you are going to take your largest quartile, Q3, and subtract your smallest quartile, Q1. So you're going to take 77 and subtract 62 for an interquartile range of 15. And I'll do the math over here. 77 minus 62 is 15. And then you have to figure out, are there any outliers? So we are going to use the outliers test to practice and prove it mathematically if there are or aren't any outliers. So we have to remember these formulas. For the lower outlier test, you will have an outlier if that number is less than or equal to Q1 minus 1.5 times the interquartile range. And for the upper outlier will occur if it is greater than or equal to Q3 plus 1.5 times the interquartile range. So for the lower outlier, we always check the smallest number in our list, which in this scenario would be 25. And we're going to plug in all the other information. So Q1 is 62, and the interquartile range is 15. And we end up with 25 is less than or equal to 39.5, which is a true statement. So because it's true, we know for a fact that 25 is an outlier. Now we're going to check if 85 is an outlier because that is the largest number in our list, to see if we have an upper outlier as well. So we're going to plug in everything else respectively. And when we do that, we end up with 85 is greater than or equal to 99.5. And because that is a false statement, we do not have any upper outliers, but we do have a lower outlier. So on the line where it says outliers and it says a question mark, we're just going to say yes because of that 25. And if you need to pause the video now to copy down any of this work, feel free to do so before we move on to going over question 12. So question 12, same concept. We're finding all of these things, and luckily these numbers are written in order from lowest to highest for us already. And if we count how many numbers that there are in this list, we should see that there is 13, I believe. And since there is an odd number, there's only going to be one middle term, and that middle term should be 37, because there are 6 numbers to the left of 37 that we're going to bracket off, and 6 numbers to the right. So that 37 is known as a couple things. It's known as our Q2. It is also known as the median, which we remember median, middle, which makes sense. Moving on to finding Q1. Q1 is going to be the middle number in the first set of brackets that we made, and that is going to be between 29 and 30. And we can use logic here. The number that is between 29 and 30 is 29.5. And for Q3, the middle number over here, we can also use logic because the middle number between 40 and 42 is 41. So we have all of our quartiles so far. Now to find the range is always going to take our largest number, our upper extreme, 44, and subtract our lower extreme, the smallest number in our list, 28. And we should get 16 is our range. And then for the inner quartile range, we're going to take our largest quartile, 41, which is Q3, and subtract our smallest quartile, Q1, which is 29.5, and we should get our inner quartile range is 11.5. Now we're going to use our outliers test to determine if there are any outliers. So as usual, we'll start with our lower outliers test, and that's going to be that we'll have an outlier if that number is less than or equal to Q1 minus 1.5 times our inner quartile range. Now we're just going to plug in the numbers. So the outlier that we're testing is our smallest number in our list, 28. So we're saying, is 28 less than or equal to Q1, 29.5, minus 1.5 times our inner quartile range of 11.5. And when we plug in this information, we should get 28 is less than or equal to 12.25, which is false. So far, no outliers. So for the upper outlier test, we have the fact that there is an outlier if that number is greater than or equal to Q3 plus 1.5 times our inner quartile range. And now we're just going to plug in the numbers. So we're going to check the largest number in our list, which is 44, and we're saying, is 44 greater than or equal to our quartile 341 plus 1.5 times our interquartile range of 11.5. And we end up with 44 is greater than or equal to 58.25, which is false as well. So therefore, we have no outliers because both outliers tests proved false. And now if you want to pause it before we go on to the next page, go ahead and do so. Okay, so we have a new list of numbers. Luckily, they are in order for us already, lowest to highest. So question 3 says find the range of the data. Now the range is always the largest number in our list, also known as the upper extreme, minus the smallest number in our list, also known as the lower extreme. So if we take 1,175 and subtract 835, we are going to determine that the range is 340. And now we're going to go through and figure out all the quartiles, starting with quartile 2. So if you go through this list of numbers, there is an even amount, which means that you're going to circle the two middle numbers. And because they are the same, that makes it easy. So quartile 2 is going to be 1,075. And now you're going to bracket off to the left and to the right. Now keep in mind that because you circled those two middle numbers, you still have to use them when you figure out the brackets. So don't forget about those. And now you're going to do the same process to find Q1 and Q3. So quartile 1 is going to be your middle number in the first set of brackets, and that should be 1,025. And quartile 3 is going to be the middle number in the second set of brackets, and that should be the number 1,125. Now we already know the range. The range we figured out already was 340, and the interquartile range is going to be the difference between our highest and lowest quartile. So when we subtract those numbers, we should get 100. So that's our interquartile range. And for our last question, question 5, I have that on another page on here, so if you need to pause the video again, go ahead and do so before we move on. Okay, question 5. So this time they gave us the outliers formulas to use, and we know all the information, so we're just going to go ahead and plug it in. So here is the upper outliers test, and when we plug those numbers in, we get 1,175 is greater than or equal to 1,275. And this is false, so far no outliers. And for the lower outlier test, you should end up with 835 is less than or equal to 875, and that is true. So our final statement should say, therefore, remember those three dots in the shape of a triangle is the therefore symbol, 835 is an outlier. And that should end our notes for today.